if you're sitting somewhere in the cold and the wet and you're dreaming of being in a warm, sunny clime, there's so much more to the Caribbean than just beaches and, drinking by the pool. One of the things that I'm super interested in at the moment is farming in the Caribbean. And by chance, I lucked upon a fabulous young woman who has started growing her own food and has a garden project and so much more taking place. Her name is Nubi. Hey, Nubi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's a real pleasure. And maybe we did practice this beforehand, but I think I'm going to fail again. Tell us where in Grenada you are because I can't pronounce it.
Okay, so in Barrett to be exact, but I usually just say Perdmontemps because it's easier for people to find me through the Perdmontemps main road.
Okay, Perdmontemps. Because when we
The French name is Perdmontemps.
Right. So
but it's easy to just say Perdmontemps. Right?
That's how I got you to say it, so I didn't have to get my tongue around that. Awesome. And tell us the name of your farm.
It's Nubi Holistic Garden.
Okay. See, every single word in that just like makes me come alive. Why did you decide to brand it a holistic garden? What does that mean to you?
It's the whole body. It's all about getting back to nature the way it was intended to. So at Nubi Holistic Garden, it's about getting herbs or plants that can, treat your body. Food is intended to be a medicine, right? But we've grown away from that. So my intention with this garden is to actually grow the food for medicinal purposes, like your cabbages, your carrot, they all serve a purpose. And we all have certain times when our bodies are acting weird. We should be able to go outside and pick some food there and come back inside and cook it and actually heal our bodies the natural way. So it's a body, mind, and soul, experience.
Right, absolutely. And so have you always known this? Have you always known about healthy eating and about gardening? Is it something that you've recently discovered, or tell me more about your journey to getting to this point where you are running your own garden?
Well, growing up in the Caribbean, I grew up in Grenada. I spent the first 20 years of my life in Grenada. So my grandparents, I grew up with my grandmother and my father, and you see the older people always having celery juice or carrot juice, and you're like, why are they drinking this awful tasting stuff? But as I grew older, I realized that at that time that they were realizing that there are certain things in their body they needed to heal. So me thinking, if I started early, I would not have to deal with those problems later. So I've always tried to keep my food somewhat as healthy as possible. I mean, there is time I will indulge in, fast food or whatever, but I will still try to ensure it is something positive for my body because I don't want to deal with the after effects of it.
Right. Well, you definitely have a very healthy glow, so I can tell you're not lying. I can tell
Thank you.
Putting good stuff into your body. And so did you end up like studying agriculture, or like how did the garden as a calling come about?
Okay, so I just feel like the garden follows me everywhere I go. No, I did not study agriculture, except for in secondary school. Everybody has to do agri-science, but I studied psychology and human resource management, which is far from agriculture. But the reason I took psychology was literally to find out who I was. I'm interested in knowing who I am first, because once I know who I am as an individual, then it will be easier to help anybody else, or at least try to help anybody else. But my calling to the earth, again, it started with my friend. I'm going to shout her name out, Michelle Delaney from Canada. She was doing a garden in the back of her high-rise building, and she said, Nicole, you have no choice. You have to help me. So I did it. And in doing so, I realized how much I actually love the garden. And I loved being able to just go and plant a seed and actually watch it mature, right? Now, I've always done like flower pot gardening, in Canada, you know, there's seasons. So I would have little flower pots on my balcony. I have like my little spinach, my little kale, or I'll put tomatoes. And I taught my son from a pretty, like, he was in diapers when he was planting his first tomato tree, right? So it's always been just the earth, nature, food calling me, and I had to do it in a natural way without chemicals, because again, chemicals affect your body. So it's always just, I guess, embedded, it's innate nature.
Yeah, and it's really interesting the way in which, like, so you had the sort of, you grew up around people who ate healthily. You say you come from a farming family, but it's interesting, I find sometimes the way in which it's not until we go overseas or we go to a different environment that there's that cross-pollination. So the knowledge was already there, but seeing how it's done elsewhere, it's like, this is applicable to me, or this can be fun, or it's not just for old people. And I love what you were saying about like the way in which your friend weaved in the local community and schools. Like, can you talk a little bit more about what that project was like?
Okay, so that's a project I'm currently working on here as well. It's slowly building momentum. So the project that she did is literally inviting the community to come in and plant, right? Because it's a community thing. We need healthier communities. I mean, the community is as strong as its weakest link. So if your community is sick, we're all going to be sick, right? So if you teach everybody how to plant, grow their foods in the most natural way possible, people start, like, it's a form of exercise. It's a form of therapy, right? And not only that, being around people who you probably would not have otherwise spoken to, you also build networking relationships. So to me, that when I saw that, it was like an aha moment. It was like, yes, I want to be part of this. So I'm going to tell you a little story. So I moved away from Toronto and I moved to Niagara, well, West Niagara. And where I worked, it was part of another community, which adjoining little communities. And there was also a food garden. And I was also, and they didn't know that I had a, you know, the capability or whatever to do this. And they came directly to me, like, can you help us? Like, could you be part of this? And I jumped at the opportunity. And again, inviting my clients in, letting them bring their children to see how it's done. And, you know, watching a little girl see a sunflower for the first time that she planted bloom. It was just like, wow, this is the love that we need to put back into the world. We need to, you know, nurture that innocence in this, you know. There's so much distractions everywhere, but when you go back to nature, it's something so pure. There's nothing that can destroy that unless, you know, we stop doing it. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. It's funny. I remember that, I don't even know why it didn't come to mind, but I used to work for a charity that ran old people's homes, like all across the UK and Ireland and other countries too. And there was this group of old people, not even that old, like some of them were in their early 60s, but they lived in an apartment block and had nothing to do with the neighbors around them. Like, they lived there, no one really said hello, no one really knew that they existed. And what I got them to do was to turn their lawn, like they had this lovely lawn and like hedges all around, to turn it into a garden. And I got some local gardeners to come along, and they were digging, and like people came down and helped them create a bug home. And the way in which nature, food can just be a way to create those intergenerational interactions.
Yes,
So important.
of course. It's beautiful.
Right?
You know, the seniors, we tend to pack them up in a corner because, you know, you're old already, you know, you live your time, as people would say to them, it's my turn to live, it's my turn to, but they hold so much valuable information. Oh my God, things that we would probably never learn in this lifetime. And it's right there waiting for them to pour it into us. And that interaction is, there's no cost that can be placed on it. It's priceless.
Right.
So again, seeing that community love, that community support, the oldest person is teaching the smallest baby. And not only that, it fosters a relationship because parents are always busy. So having a senior there to say, okay, you know what, I'll take the baby, you go do what you got to do. That child gets that love and support that that person is too busy to give. So that is why, again, we need to foster and build on that kind of love and try not to let it die out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's before you even got to the part of just how therapeutic it is being in nature, having your hands in the soil, like letting the wind go through the trees. Like,
of course.
It's funny, I spoke to a couple of kids who were doing an apprenticeship up at Juve Chocolate in St. Mark's.
Okay.
And they were originally supposed to be on the agro-processing path, but for some reason they ended up working tending cocoa. And they were saying, yeah, like I never would have applied for it if I knew at school studying agriculture was so boring. It was like textbooks and labeling stuff, but actually getting to speak to the old farmers and them teaching it, like it really brought it alive. And I think your experience just, speaks volumes to what that passing on the information and that generational knowledge can be.
It's nice.
Yeah. So let's go back to, so you were in Toronto, then moved to West Niagara. What brought you back? Did you always plan to move back to Grenada?
Home will always be home. Home is where the heart is. From the minute I got to Canada, I wanted to come home, but I know why I wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. There are certain things that I needed to become an adult, and I needed to become an adult without my parents around. Right? Because, parents have that way they cover you. But being in a big country with no really family around, it forces you to tap into your ability fast, right? It's like survival, life or death. You have to do that intuitive side that all of us contain, it goes into full gear. Mm-hmm. And if you're home where everybody's telling you what to do and what not to do, it kind of keeps you back. So, yeah, that's why I like being out there.
Yeah, it's like taking off the stabilizers. Like, yes, you can pull, but you can also pedal.
It's like throwing you in the ocean and telling you to swim, which is not a good idea, by the way. It traumatizes people. Right? So, yes. And in that situation, a lot of people who have gone abroad, they do come back with somewhat a little bit of a depression and all that, because it's fighting your own battles without support. It's good to an extent, but it's also good to have family support. So yeah, and nature actually keeps you there, and it buffers you in that little way.
Right. And so tell me more about how the garden initiative came to the fore once you moved back to Grenada.
Okay, so for me, it's my grandmother. She's always had that influence on me, because, when you're sick, grandma always comes in and she gives you the little herbs, the little book. I call it herbs, but, the little backyard teas and the remedies and all that. And I remember since I was a child, the book, The Garden of Eden. I've always, she had that book, and I've always just take up that book and reading it. So it's always fascinated me how you can use this bush for this problem, or you can use this for that. So when I came home and I saw all of the stuff in the backyard, like the shadow bennies, the black sage, the lemongrass, the cinnamon, I'm like, you know what? I want to do teas. I want to be able to share this with the world. So hence my name, Nubi, right? I'm about Nubi teas. I'm slowly coming off the ground, but that is my intention, to be able to have that available so people who are not here in the Caribbean can access that and have the Cersei teas, which we call the Kuli Papa, right? Those teas, or have the what you call it, the turmeric teas, all of those things which we look over. I wanted to share that because there's so much medicinal properties in all of those plants we call weeds, right? They say money don't grow on tree, but that's a lie.
Very true. How funny. Yeah, it's interesting. So I also make herbal teas, and I think it's so interesting. Like, yeah, you sort of have the teas that are sort of common knowledge, but by talking to older people and being in different parts, you get to realize that actually there's so much more. And quite often you'll find that there are scientific studies being done on some of the plants that we just ignore. So for example, cudger root.
Culture.
I don't know what's another way. I forget the other name for it in or Guinea, Jamaicans call it guinea hen wheat. It's got a really
Okay, so I know the name Kojo
Mhm.
wheat, but yet somebody was supposed to bring me some.
I'm
so
sure
I
you
can.
probably stepped all over it. It doesn't look that unique, but when you taste it, it has a definite medicinal taste. And at the height of COVID, they were doing studies as to whether that was something that could be used. Zebapic is another one. And I think that's, again, being in nature, having a relationship with the plants, but also having a relationship with the elders, like your grandmother, who can pass on that knowledge. Is so exciting.
And that knowledge is dying out, eh? So that's why, again, we need to be around the seniors. We need them to because there's stuff that they know that's not in the textbooks. So we need them to share it. Don't die with that information. Come on, put it out there, share it with us.
Right.
Let us live this on. Like, in Tibet or in China, that teas are like the stuff that you would never even think about here. It's a big thing over there, right? And they're making millions on it. So like, let's get into this. Absolutely. Let's use what we have. Nobody in this Caribbean or in Grenada, I'm gonna speak for Grenada. Nobody in Grenada should be sick. Nobody should have diabetes. Nobody should have high blood pressure. None of those things, because look, we love mangoes. Mango leaves are valuable. Like, all of those things can be used to treat our bodies and still enjoy the fruit, Yeah. So that's what drew me back. And that's what took me back to the island. And that was half me where I am right now, which is the garden and the teas, because that is what I feel. It creates life in me. The 9-to-5 job is great, but it has its people. For me, I need to be outside. I need to be able to sit down between the trees and just suck in the pure oxygen and all of those, stuff.
Yeah, 100%. This is why I'm talking to you, because I need the same thing too. So it's just awesome to meet other people that are sort of on that journey, making it happen. And I think, that knowledge sharing is really important. Ways to just kind of big up Grenada in ways that are beyond like music, food, but healing. Like, there's so much richness here that I think sharing.
Even the soil is good. I remember when I just came back, mosquitoes, those pesky little bugs. I sat down for a minute and they just swarmed me. I didn't know what to do. I slapped my legs. I couldn't take it anymore. So I just sat down and watched them bite me. And then when I was finished, I said, okay, I'm going to find a way to deal with this problem. I literally went to the backyard and I dig up some mud and I literally pasted all over my legs. And I'm fair skinned. So you can see all the little spots of the mosquitoes bites, they're red. And I put my foot in the mud, literally rub it all over my skin. And within a few, maybe 5 minutes, I washed it off. All of the spots were gone. It's like it draw the toxins out of my skin. It was amazing. Like, do you see how magnificent this country is? The soil is so rich. We need to start planting. We need to start enjoying it some more.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it, that to get to the point where you intuitively feel like, I'm not just going to kill them all, even though there's a temptation to, but I'm going to sit there and let it happen. And
it was tough. It was hard.
But yeah, you felt the need to put mud on it, and you did it. Some people might have been like, oh, that's crazy, or let me just spray something that's laden with DEET. And I think getting to that point where you can just follow that calling and see what comes is amazing. If you found anything that works for sandflies, please let me know, because I can't.
Absolutely.
Sandflies. I definitely know.
You know what? I do have a remedy for sandfly, actually.
Can we share it on the internet?
I'm sure we can. What I tried with my son is like, I just used some rosemary, some camphor, and some coconut oil, and I let it sit there, like really sit, till the oil is diffused with it, and I put it on our skin. So the sandfly don't bite us. I mean, you may get one or two, but not as bad as it used to be.
Awesome. And I love rosemary. So I love the idea of walking around smelling of rosemary.
That's the other thing. Like, we could literally plant plants like the rosemaries around our house, which will help us get rid of mosquitoes and all of those things. So if we're in tune and we start paying attention, we can literally just plant stuff around our house to get rid of bugs and all of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. So tell me more about plans for the garden, for the teas. Like what's the vision?
The vision is, one, I need the teas to be, the cinnamon teas, the lemongrass, all of those teas. That's what I love. That's what I want to share with everybody. The garden is a place where you can literally come to, once it's open, come to and sit and just detox, a literal mind detox. So you can come, yes, come to the front of the house with your problems, but you're going to check it there. And you're going to walk in and just enjoy the beauty of nature and what it has to offer. Like, hug a tree if you want to, sit, read, lie down, just take it all in. Enjoy the magicalness of it. Sometimes I call it, the Garden of Eden, because it's like you walk through and you're able to pick a guava or you're able to pick a mango. But again, here, I would say, if you're sick or whatever, I don't want you touching anything, because we transfer energy, right? The plants give us energy, and we also have to be respectful of the tree's energy as well, right? But my vision for here is to be a place where you literally can come and just take a moment for yourself. Go down to the ravine, listen to the water flowing, and just suck in nature, even if it's for half a day or a day, and just be one with nature. I enjoy that when I was studying in Canada, when I was going through my bachelor's degree. That's really hard, mind altering. I call it mind altering stuff, right? Because you always have to be on the ball. And a friend of mine took me out into the woods. Literally every weekend I would go hiking. Even in the dead of winter, I was hiking. But there was just something about being out there, away from technology, away from cars, away from people, that literally just centered me. I was able to literally hear myself think. I was able to find my balance, right? I often walk through the garden without shoes, and people be like, put your shoes on, you don't know what you'll be picking up. But it grounds me. It keeps me sane, so to speak. It keeps me sane. That's why, again, it's called a holistic garden. It's about keeping you sane, keeping your spirit in check, and keeping your body healthy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so exciting. In Japan, they have the concept of forest bathing. So that understanding that the frequencies that you're immersing in, whether it's visually with the color or the sound of the wind through the trees or the smells, there's just so much that can be restorative. But as you say, it's like a symbiotic relationship. We can't just take, okay, this rosemary is good for me, so I'm going to cut down the whole bush, and this needs more, so I'm going to pump it some pesticides. Like, no, if we want to take, we've also got to give, and respectfulness, I think, is so key to that as well. Oh, exciting. I'm so excited to see what happens next. So do you have a timeline for opening, or are the teas available in stores?
No, teas are not available in stores as yet. Again, we're just coming off of the ground. So slowly, I'm not rushing. I'm taking my time, because I believe everything of value or quality, it needs to be nurtured, right? It's not a mass production place. If you come here and you want tea, yes, you can get it. It's not in the supermarket it's not in the supermarket. Eventually you'll get there, but it's not there yet. And I see the direction going eventually there. But again, I tell you, I'm not rushing. I'll take my time.
Yeah, that's one of the things. My parents are from Grenada, but I lived here in 2015, but I've only been here full time since July. And one of the things I'm learning is Grenada it forces you to go slowly, whether you want to go slowly or not.
It can drive you crazy at times.
It can drive you crazy, but then on the other side of crazy is an appreciation for being in a place where people care about their well-being. You're not gonna like hustle yourself just for $1, because what's $1? Like, you know? So yeah, I'm very much learning how to
slow down.
right. And growth can't just be linear, right? There's no plant that just grows up and up and up and never sheds its leaves or never needs to release some stuff. So just flowing rather than plowing on through like some crazy English woman is something that I'm learning to adjust to. Well, Nubi, it's been amazing talking to you. Hopefully at some point, once I've got a few more people involved, maybe we can come and like do some videos over the farm. But you also have started a YouTube channel, right? Tell us more about that.
I have. I have. Over the last couple of weeks, we started a YouTube channel, Facebook page. I'm just showcasing, you know, for people even like me, like we're new farmers and we're learning as we go along. There are real, you know, challenges in farming that a lot of people don't talk about. And I also want to change of what farming looks like. Like we have this vision in our head that, you know, a farmer is supposed to look so dirty and destitute and old and haggard and, you know, there's no more life in them. But we need to realize without the farmers, we won't eat. So let's all stop that and focus more on being part of the growth. Grenada is a beautiful place for planting. Anything you throw in the soil will grow. So, you know, let's change all of that. No more old clothes in the garden because it's old clothes and you can't wear it anywhere else. Like, let's have respect. Like, you go to work, this is a job. Let's do it and do it in the best way possible. And I'm doing it. Yes, I'll have failures. But you know what? Failures are good because it pushes you to actually learn or study more. It forces you to get help. It forces you to find creative ways. And trust me, there's creative ways of doing so many things. Yeah, we may not have ground space, but there's lots of space upwards. So let's change the way we look at things, because once we do that, the things we look at will change. So we have to find ways to be more innovative and creative. We're in a creative time right now, and I'm a creator, so I'm going to keep creating. Right? I created my name at Nubi, and the name Nubi literally means now you be incredible.
Love it.
Right? So there's nothing stopping us from being our best. And we need to focus on ourselves and become our best, not for anybody else, but for ourselves. And the only how we do that is if we go back to where we all started, from Earth, and come forward. We need to start being more mindful of the things we're putting in our bodies. We need to be mindful of the energies we're giving out, whether if it's negative or positive, because again, whatever you put out there is going to come back to you. So if you're always spewing negativity and nastiness, it's going to come back to you. And no, nobody didn't do you and nobody didn't obey you. It's the energy you're putting out, it's coming back. So we have to start thinking and being mindful of all of those things, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how I see it.
No, it's exciting. And I also think as much as the whole pandemic situation has created a lot of suffering, it's also highlighted some areas in which there's just a clear need for change. And I think from my perspective, seeing the way, I mean, I'm no position to talk coming from England, but in Grenada, a land that is so rich, that has such a strong agricultural legacy, understanding that they were like seeing the cues to get into the supermarket. But actually, if you had your backyard farming and you had
You
your
wouldn't have to be there.
Yeah, like
exactly.
In England, maybe you have an excuse. The weather is awful, it's cold, and you don't just want to eat potatoes all the time. But here, there's so much that grows, and as you say, so I hope.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to echo that with you. The pandemic, or the pandemic, as they call it, or COVID, whatever they call it, it did us a lot of good. You know what I mean? It gave us time to reconnect with our families because we were forced to stay home. A lot of people didn't see it as being forced to stay home to be with your families. You saw it as being forced to stay home. You didn't have no money, you didn't have no work. But again, remember I said the way you look at things, if you look at it differently, you will see something different. Parents were able to bond with their children, and some of them realized they couldn't even stand their children. So you know what, you're sending these children to school and these teachers can't stand them either. So now it forces you to actually go back and think, what am I doing to my kids? Let me nurture them in a different way. Let me give them things that would actually help them push forward. You know what I mean? So I saw the positive side of it. I saw people who would have not otherwise thought of selling food, sell food. I see people opening little businesses by their homes, which is beautiful, right? Otherwise, they would have been stuck in that little cubicle 9 to 5 in the place they hate.
Absolutely.
Right? So yes, there was devastation in that, but there was also growth. And if we look for the growth and we look for the positive side of every bad situation, we will come out actually in a better place. And let's not keep looking back. Let's move forward. That's where we're going, right? The more we look backward, we miss what's actually happening in the present. So again, this is what holistic life or holistic living is about: mind, body, and soul, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are beautiful words to end on. And again, it's just sort of reflecting nature's way. So much that we might initially just focus on destructive, whether it's a hurricane or a tsunami, it's actually a way of stripping away what's not needed.
And that's nature's cleaning, natural way of cleaning out the excess.
Yeah, and at times it's painful, at times it's challenging, but looking, as you say, to the future, okay, what are the opportunities that arise? How can I do things differently given the circumstances? Yeah, it's a real invitation.
And breaking bad habits and breaking cycles, right? Because we need to get rid of all the hate and the things we've been hanging on from my, your grandmother, auntie, uncle, cousin, ninin from way back when. You're still hanging on to that hate. It's not your hate. Leave it alone. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, it's inspiring to connect with you. I can't wait to taste your teas and to sit down and chat and come hang out at your garden. But yeah, I just really appreciate what you're doing. I love the idea that you're kind of getting more folks in the community involved, both to help people feel more invested, but also just as a practical way to get people connected with the land and eating healthy food that they've grown themselves. So yeah. Good luck.
And also giving farmers recognition, because you know what, it's a play. Farmers are not appreciated. Farmers are not praised the way they should be. Like, I have so much respect and appreciation for farmers, and we need to honestly realize that without farmers, we won't be alive, because we have to, no matter how rich you are, no matter how poor you are, there's one thing in common: we all must eat. So let's plant. Let's bring back the bees. Let's bring it back.
Yeah,
to the way it's intended to be.
For sure. And what better place to start it than in Grenada, where
than in your own backyard.
If you've done it in Canada, for sure you can do it in Grenada, right?
Of course.
It's welcome.
Of course we can. There's no reason why we can't. And if you give me a reason, it's an excuse.
Absolutely. Well, I will make sure to put links to your YouTube channel, to your Facebook page down below. And as and when anything else crops up, I will put that there so people know where to find you. But yeah, highly appreciate you, and look forward to connecting and wish you the best with all your next steps.